Hi, Michael here for another episode of Cup of Talks. Today I'm in my studio. I would hope to do something outside, especially a walk and talk video at the park, but it's cold and rainy and humid out there, so not a good time to be outside, even though it's officially summer. So I'm down here in my studio, getting things set up for a new recording project. I'm actually going to do some specific recording for what will probably become an album and be on my Bandcamp page. So what do I talk about today? Well, thinking of Facebook, a question came up in one of the sound worker groups about how do you collaborate with other people? Do you get together and make a plan? Or do you just improvise, or what? And it's an interesting subject. There's no right or wrong way to work with other people. That's really important to understand. There is no right or wrong way. I know the way that I do it, and it might be different from the way you do it or somebody else does it. For me, and sort of my response was, well, I just always improvise. When I work with other people, we don't talk beforehand about what we are going to do. We don't make a plan, we don't write things down, we don't have a discussion, nothing like that. We just start playing. But there's a big caveat here. And there's a couple of things. One is I'm very experienced at improvising. I've been improvising since I was a teenager, really, playing drums in bands and percussion in bands, and that I have a lot of experience improvising with other musicians. And within the context of playing gongs and other small percussion and hand drums and that, I have a lot of experience working in an improvisational context, playing concerts with other musicians. Some of them I knew, some of them I met at the concert. And just getting up and playing. But the big thing is this is what I do. This is the type of work I do. I am an improvising musician. I guess you could say this is my specialty, really, is just playing. So when I talk about that, I'm really speaking about what I do. So that was the first thing. The second caveat is, if possible, I only choose to work with people who I know this is going to work out. I improvise with friends or acquaintances. Sometimes I improvise with people that I've known but I've never played with before. It's just kind of a strange thing about being a working musician. It's a joke we all have, is that we are friends and we might see others socially or, meet each other at the grocery store, odd meetings like that. But often we rarely see each other play because we have our own gigs. It's Friday, Saturday night, and you go, oh, my friend Bob's playing here. Well, I got my own gig there, so I can't go see Bob play. So that's sort of a big joke among working musicians, is that we're always working at the same time. So we don't get to see each other play. So in that case, I have a lot of musicians who are friends who I've never seen play in person or rarely seen play in person. But I know of their work from talking to them, from listening to their recordings, and maybe watching videos of them, like on YouTube. So I'm familiar with their work and what they do. And this is important because when I'm going to improvise with somebody like that, Or even just if I'm put in a situation and they say, hey, can you come and play? Okay, who else is playing? I like to know who. So I can look them up. Especially if I don't know them, I can look them up and I can see what's their thing. How do they play? What instruments do they play? What type of stuff do they tend to play? I do my homework. I do my research on the people that I'm going to end up working with. There used to be a fabulous series here in Milwaukee, and there were a lot of great improvised music series. And then COVID hit, and then all that stuff had to go. A lot of it just disappeared and never came back. Some of it went on the internet, on Zoom, and then it came back and kind of fizzled out. It was a shame. We had a really fabulous improvised music community and scene here in Milwaukee, and it's kind of, COVID kind of, over the years, kind of thinned it out. But there used to be a series called Unrehearsed, and there were 3 people who were the curators of it, and what they would do for each month's performance, they each one would put together a group of musicians. So I'd get like an email and say, hey, Michael, can you play this Sunday or, play this month at Unrehearsed? And I go, sure, why not? Okay. The thing I would ask is, who am I playing with? Oh, yeah, I know them, and I know that. Oh, I've played with her before. I don't know this one. I don't know that person. I would look them up. I would research. Who are they? What do they do? So the beauty of something like Unrehearsed, it was from very young people, 18, 19, 20s, early 20s, whatever, up to a lot of people like myself, sort of elders of the community, as it were. So it was a wide variety, and you got to play with a wide variety of people. And it was great because there was a lot of energy to this series. So anyway, I would look people up so I'd know what do they do? What do they sound like? And then I would always pick out instruments that I thought would fit the grouping I was in. Like if I'm playing with a string player and a trumpet player and a piano player, that's different than if I'm playing with just a brass section or just all strings, or if I'm playing with an electric noise artist and a synth artist. Different situations. And I would, because I have such a large selection of gear available, I would always curate my own gear and pick out, what sounds should I bring? Almost always brought a gong because I was kind of known for that. But I would bring hand drums, shakers, rattles, sound effects, sheet metal, whatever I thought was appropriate for the gig. And we would show up at the place. It had a resident home at different places over the years, but we would show up and you kind of meet everybody. Hey, how you doing? Hi, I'm Michael. Oh, okay, nice to meet you, and all that. And then like first group, and the person who curated it would introduce everybody, and then we would just start playing. Somebody would make a noise. Somebody would respond to that noise, and and we would just play and see where it went to. And the important thing about this, and this is what I talk about a lot, and what I teach about with improvising, because I teach about how to improvise. And I've done that for years. And on my YouTube channel, if you look it up, there's videos on improvising. There's a whole series of a recording I did with guest musicians who came in over the course of a day. And I have a whole bunch of stuff, so just look it up. But the big thing I say is when you are improvising with other people, it's essentially a conversation. Now, instead of vocally talking, you're talking with your instruments, whatever they may be. And it's a conversation. And the most important part of improvising is you have to listen. You just can't be up there and playing and go, yeah, I'm doing my thing, man. This is great. Yeah, yeah. And you're playing your sounds and you're not listening to what is happening around you. That's the number one mistake. And that's what happens sometimes with younger improvisers. They kind of thought, this is my chance to really show my shit, you know, and they would just be up there and just like doing their thing. And it's kind of like, this is supposed to be a group, not a solo with accompaniment, you know. So, biggest thing, you have to listen. As my good friend, the late Swiss drummer Freddie Studer used to say, Michael, you have to have big ears. And that's always stuck with me. It really is. You have to listen to improvise. And when everybody listens, it turns out. It usually works. When somebody doesn't listen, then you kind of get this, you can feel this push and pull, and it's just like, come on, get with it. And then things don't work. Another part about improvising, like I said, it's a conversation. It's like you get together with 1, 2, or 3 friends, and you start talking. You don't communicate ahead of time. Okay, we're going to get together Tuesday night. We're going to talk about these subjects. You don't do that. I don't know anybody who ever does that, unless you say, hey, let's talk about the big game. Okay, you might do something like that. But otherwise, you get together and you just start talking. And the conversation, it wanders and meanders like a stream going, you know, through the woods. And it comes to different areas. But you're not focused on having like a list of things and you go down this list. No, you just start talking and everybody's contributing and subjects kind of run their course and then you start talking about another subject. And it's the same thing in improvised music. Somebody comes up with an idea, a rhythm, a theme, a motif, a melody, whatever that happens. And everybody kind of goes with it and works with it and around it. And then that just kind of runs its course and somebody comes up with something else. A real important thing to understand, too, like a conversation, if you don't have anything to contribute, don't. Right? If you don't have anything that to really contribute to the conversation, you're quiet and you wait until you have something to contribute. It's the same with music. There are plenty of times where I've just stopped playing because it's like, I just don't have anything to contribute right now to what is happening in this moment. So I'm not going to play anything. And sometimes it's a case of what's happening is so great, I just want to listen to it. Because again, I don't want to just jump in and play something and step all over it and ruin the moment. If the moment is there and I do not have something that I can contribute that will help elevate the moment and make it better, then I won't play. I'll just stop and listen. And I'll wait until I feel or hear something and it's like, oh, I can make this sound and contribute to what's going on. So don't be afraid to just be quiet. You know, sometimes people think if you're working with somebody else, you just got to keep going and you just got to keep making sounds and all that. No, sometimes it's nice when you drop out. And sometimes, let's say you're playing with 4 people and 3 people drop out and there's just one voice playing. That could be really amazing. And how does that happen? From listening. If I can teach one lesson in the whole world to everybody, it's like you have to listen. Whether you're playing solo or in a group, you have to listen. Listen to yourself when you're playing solo. Listen to the room. Listen to the feedback from the people. When you're playing with other people, you have to listen to them. Another rule that's important is if you're playing in a group and you can't hear the rest of the group, you're too loud. Let me repeat that. If you are playing in a group and you cannot hear the other musicians, you are too loud. Back off. Bring your volume down. Now, unless you are playing a solo part and you need to kind of rise above everything, that's one thing. But you kind of come up, you play your solo, and you fade back down into things. And another important aspect is it's not the time to show off. Like, oh, I've been practicing at home with all these new licks and all this cool stuff, and I'm just going to whip it out. And, no, it's not like in conversation you go, ooh, I just learned all these new words, or I've been studying a foreign language and I'm going to start speaking in French at this conversation because I've been taking French lessons. It's like, no. So don't do that when you're playing with other people. Listen, contribute, step away and stop if you're not feeling anything to contribute, and it should be fine. Okay, so that's what I normally do. I just get up and we just play. And I've worked in a duo with a friend who plays shakuhachi flutes. He came over here and we practiced a bunch of material and kind of, because we had some tunes with actual melodies and structure. So we kind of ran through stuff. But then when we played out at a gig, we would just play out and he would just kind of call a tune and I would follow him and contribute the sort of sounds that I thought went with what we were doing. And I've done that with many people. It's just get up and play. I was in Australia years ago. I was the artist in residence at a big music festival. And then I ended up playing like 8 concerts over the course of the festival. And 4 of them were duos with other people. People who were Australian and I had never met. I had never seen play before. I had never heard before. And we just got up and we played. And I listened and they listened and we had a conversation between each other. And you can find some of those videos of those performances on my YouTube channel. So look those up with the Monofoma Festival. But that's one way to work. Okay, let's talk about having plans. There's nothing wrong with making plans ahead of time and saying, let's do this sort of thing. Plans can be different things. They can be very specific, like you start on the Mercury gong and I will play these bells here. And then you come in with the crystal bowls and then we'll kind of do a thing for a while. And then you move over to the wind gong and I'll pick up some shakers and play. You can have very specific plans like that. And there's nothing wrong with that. You can also have more feeling type of plans. So, when we get up there, the first thing we play, let's kind of have this sort of a mood. And you can use different ways to describe moods. You can say, how about a rainy day in fall? And the leaves are falling and you're out in the forest. You can get that scent of the wet leaves and all this. Let's start with that. So you can plan things that way as more of a mood instead of specific things. Or if you have the capabilities, you could even write out things. You could write out some motifs, in music notation or something. Or even just write out some notes with words, to tell you what to do. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just another way to work. And this brings me up to last Sunday, where I was invited to be the guest artist for some friends of mine who have a studio in town. And they asked me to come and play with them, basically for their session. And when I got there, they told me how they work and how things would go. And they said, well, I usually start with this and do this sort of thing and play these instruments and do some drumming. And then he's going to go around with this and walk around the people. And we'll do that for a bit. And then you can play all by yourself for a while. And then we'll come back in and do this sort of thing. And we do this and that and the other thing. Okay, so I was a guest fitting in with their session. And they told me how they the form, I guess you could say, of how their session typically goes. And I was like, okay. So what was the first thing that I did? I listened to what was going on. And I picked out sounds that I thought would match the sounds they were making. Crystal bowls, one of those little tank drums with the tines on it, other things. And I would find sounds that I felt went along with those and play them in a manner that created more of a background for what they were doing. I didn't want to step all over it. It wasn't like, I'm here and I'm the guest artist, so I'm going to do my thing. No, the idea wasn't to impose my thing upon their thing. The idea was, okay, I'm going to play things that as a cushion underneath what they are doing. And I kind of know the structure of what they are doing, and I can hear when they move to something else and what I should do. I had played with them one time last year, so that helped because I kind of had more of an idea of how they worked. And that was fine, that they gave me sort of a plan of what they were doing. But then again, I just purely improvised based on what they did. And it all came from, you guessed it, listening. And we had a great time, and the people liked it. And I felt that I did a good job, contributing and backing up the things that they were doing. And they were both very happy with it, and we were all happy together. So playing with other people, there's various ways to do it. You have to do what works for you. If discussing things and planning things ahead of time works for you, then do that. That's really fine. If just getting up and playing with no discussion beforehand works for you, and that's the way you work and they work, then do it. But a couple of important things are, number one is listening, always listening. And the second thing is when you're working with other people is trusting them. In the case of last Sunday, I knew the people I was playing with. I had played with them once before. I also had seen them do a session of just the two of them. So I knew what they do and I trusted them. So that's important. And again, working with people that I know, there's a certain level of trust that we've built up over the years. And a really big part of this is to be successful at playing with others, you have to put in your work. I know I'm like a broken record on this, or a tape loop over and over. Put in your work, put in your work, put in your work. But you need to. The more you work by yourself in your own space, like here in my space, the more you work with your instruments, you understand your instruments, you understand your sounds, and you are comfortable making them, the better collaborating with other people will be. Now, the interesting thing about Sunday is I listened to what notes they were playing. And even though I had my wind gong and I had a couple other gongs, and that I was able to play either the same notes or notes that harmonically fit with the notes they were making. And this all comes from non-tuned instruments. I didn't have any instruments that I used that had a tuning. So if they were playing like a C and an E and a G crystal bowl, I didn't have anything that was C, G, and E. But I know the sounds my instruments can make. So when I hear somebody make a sound, I go, okay, I can get that sound out of this gong, whoops, this gong over here with this mallet or this flumi. I can get that sound. And I only know that because I've worked with it for so long and I've developed that. And I know, I look at my instruments, I know the sounds they are capable of. And I know how to bring them out. So you have to work by yourself to develop your own musical vocabulary, your own language of sounds. You have to develop that so that when you play with others, you can bring your vocabulary and combine it with theirs. And you can find things that work with their vocabulary, just like conversation. So if we have 3 people together and we're all speaking 3 different languages, nobody's going to understand each other and what's going on. But if we're all playing the same language, and you know, it could be like English. We could have an American speaking English, somebody from the UK speaking English, and somebody from Australia speaking English. And our vocabulary and the words we choose, our inflections, and how we speak these words are all a little different, but we can still understand each other because there is enough of a common language there, a common vocabulary. And it's the same thing with music. We can have our own things and our own ideas and our little things that we do that are unique to us, but we're making music with the same or similar instruments, and there is a certain vocabulary. If you look at sound work, I mean, gongs, bowls, bells, frame drums, rattles and shakers, maybe flutes. You know, that's kind of the thing. And there's a certain vocabulary that most sound workers have. And then you'll bring your own thing on top of that. But there is a common vocabulary. All right, this is getting kind of long-winded, but I thought it was a really great question that somebody asked. And I really wanted to stress that there is no one answer to it. It all depends on how you work, and especially how you are comfortable working. So if you like to plan, plan. If you just like to say 1, 2, 3, go, and you just start playing, then do that. And for me, I've had experience doing all sorts of different ways of working with other people, so I'm comfortable doing just about anything. All right. Go work on your vocabulary. Get in your studio, your sound space. Work on your sounds, work on your vocabulary. And as I've said in other videos, get a notebook. Keep a notebook of the things you do. Keep a notebook of what works. Like, oh, the number 2 flumi really works on this gong, but the number 4 doesn't. You know, keep a diary, whatever you want to call it, a notebook, a diary, a sound diary, whatever. I liken it to an artist sketchbook, where they will do little drawings and little notes or maybe paint in it and that. Have your own sort of a sound sketchbook so that you can go back and refer to it. And it helps you implant everything into your brain so that you can remember it. All right. Thanks for coming to this Cup of Talks. Have a good day. I will.